Number 9. Yvette Lares Garcia. During a routine traffic stop in Gladstone, Oregon in November 2021, Officer Clement Lau discovered that 37-year-old Yvette Lares Garcia was wanted on a felony theft warrant out of Texas, where she was accused of embezzling over $1 million. Garcia was cooperative and polite throughout the arrest, but she repeatedly mentioned that her dogs were at home and had nobody to care for them while she was in custody. With no other option but to take the dogs to a shelter while Garcia dealt with her legal issues, the police drove her to her apartment so she could help leash them. They leashed one of the dogs right away, but the other one ran upstairs. Garcia and Sergeant Travis Hill went upstairs after the dog, while Officer Lau stayed downstairs with the leash dog. The suspect was handcuffed behind her back, but she managed to grab a gun from somewhere in her bedroom while Hill was distracted by the dog. As they went downstairs, Garcia shot Hill in the arm and leg. Lau shot back and struck Garcia in the torso. He ordered her to drop her weapon, but she repeatedly refused, saying that she wasn't going back to jail, and continued firing at the cops. She was finally taken into custody with help from backup officers. Sergeant Hill suffered permanent injuries that forced him into early retirement. Garcia received a 10-year sentence in Oregon for attempted aggravated murder. After serving her time, she'll be extradited to Texas to face the embezzlement charge. Number 8. Rocco Morabito. For 23 years, Rocco Morabito was one of Italy's most wanted crime bosses. The high-ranking member of the notorious Calabrian 'Ndrangheta syndicate went on the run in 1994, using a fake Brazilian passport to avoid facing justice for attempting to smuggle nearly a ton of cocaine into Italy. In 2001, he was sentenced in absentia to 30 years in prison. Morabito, also known as the Cocaine King of Milan, was located in Uruguay in 2017 after he tried enrolling his daughter in school using his real name. He had been living in the country's capital, Montevideo, under the alias Francisco Capoletto. A search of Morabito's properties turned up 13 cell phones, a dozen bank cards, $50,000 cash, jewels, a handgun, and multiple passport-sized photos of him sporting different disguises. Despite the suspicious finds, his lawyer claimed that his client had been living a respectable and legal lifestyle since he went on the run. Morabito spent the next 2 years in a Uruguayan prison while awaiting extradition to Italy. The 53-year-old managed to escape justice yet again in 2019 when he and 3 other inmates escaped through a hole in the building's roof. Authorities recaptured Morabito in Brazil in 2021, and this time they made sure he didn't escape custody. He was extradited to Italy the following year to begin serving his decades-long sentence. Number 7. Xavier Michael Babadar. Better known by his nickname Chiefsaholic, Xavier Michael Babadar was a fixture at Kansas City Chiefs games where he cheered the team on in a wolf mask. He gained both local and internet fame for the unusual getup, and because he was so frequently seen in the stands that even the team noticed when he wasn't there. Tickets to some of the games and events that Babadar attended are known to sell for thousands of dollars. Some of his social media followers questioned how he afforded it, especially because he was so young. The 28-year-old claimed that he became successful through good old-fashioned hard work and that he managed multiple warehouses throughout the Midwest. But that was a lie, and when Babadar failed to show up for a Chiefs game in December 2022, bits and pieces of the truth began to come out. Babadar missed the game because he was arrested for allegedly robbing a bank in Oklahoma. In fact, he was suspected of robbing banks and credit unions in multiple states, including Iowa, Tennessee, and Nebraska. Detectives connected Babadar to the previous robberies through bank records, casino records, and his cell phone locations when the crimes were committed. According to prosecutors, he laundered over $1 million in dirty money at casinos over an 8-month period. He lived out of his car throughout his multi-state crime spree, and by the time he was arrested for the Oklahoma bank robbery, all his ill-gotten money appeared to be gone. While out on bond in early 2023, Babadar cut off his ankle monitor and went on the run. He failed to show up for his next court date and managed to evade law enforcement for 4 months before being captured outside Sacramento. Babadar faces 19 charges, including 3 counts of armed bank robbery, 1 count of bank theft, 11 counts of money laundering, and 4 counts of transporting stolen property across state lines. Number 6. Gregory Conrath. In 2014, a woman contacted deputies in Miami County, Indiana, with tape recordings detailing her boyfriend's plan to murder his ex-wife, Anna. As a respected orthopedic surgeon who worked at a local hospital, 48-year-old Gregory Conrath was an unlikely suspect. But the evidence spoke for itself. In the recordings, Conrath could be heard describing how he specifically chose bullets that would inflict maximum damage to Anna's head. He also admitted that he had already gone to a shooting range to practice shooting his gun, and he asked his girlfriend to provide him with an alibi by claiming they were together at the time of Anna's murder. During a search of Conrath's residence, police found evidence indicating that he was serious about putting his plan into action. Conrath pleaded guilty to a reduced stalking charge and received an 8-year suspended prison sentence, along with 1 year of house arrest. He was also ordered to surrender his passport and not to contact his ex-wife. Just 2 weeks later, Conrath cut off his ankle bracelet and tossed it out his car window while driving. He was captured in Arizona 2 days later. In addition to violating the terms of his house arrest, Conrath allegedly tried contacting his ex-wife and had passport photos taken, indicating that he planned on securing another passport. His suspended 8-year sentence was revoked, and he was sentenced to an additional year for an escape charge. The judge overseeing the case accused Conrath of thumbing his nose at the system. In handing down the prison sentence, he explained that he didn't think Conrath had any plans whatsoever to follow the rules that were put forth by the court. Number 5. Donald Lee Cooper Jr. 28-year-old Donald Lee Cooper Jr. was wanted in connection with a fatal shooting in North Dakota when he led U.S. Marshals on a high-speed chase in Wisconsin in 2020. The pursuit lasted for several miles and reached speeds of 90 miles per hour. It finally ended when Cooper blew through a red light and collided with another car, killing 23-year-old Joseph Badora and 20-year-old Maria Bueller. Cooper tried to flee the scene on foot but was quickly captured. In addition to the charges out of North Dakota, Cooper was charged in Wisconsin with 2 counts of reckless homicide, eluding police resulting in death, and driving with a suspended license resulting in death. He was convicted of both reckless homicide counts and received a maximum prison sentence of 25 years. In a surprising twist, a North Dakota jury acquitted Cooper of all charges stemming from the shooting he was wanted for when he attempted to elude capture, including attempted murder, accomplice to murder, and reckless endangerment and terrorizing. After dealing with the case, he was sent back to Wisconsin to continue serving his 25-year sentence. Number 4. Blaine and Susan Barksdale. 72-year-old Frank Bly was nowhere to be found when his home in Tucson, Arizona burst into flames one night in 2019. Also missing from the property were one of his vehicles and dozens of guns. One of the last people to see Bly before he vanished was his good friend, 58-year-old Susan Barksdale, and her husband Blaine. Susan told investigators that she had no knowledge of Bly's whereabouts or the circumstances of his disappearance. The senior citizen's vehicle was found abandoned along a roadside the following day. Bloodstains in the trunk would later be identified through DNA as belonging to Bly. Several days later, Susan Barksdale's daughter called authorities and reported that her mother had fled the area in a hurry. The young woman was worried that Susan was in danger and said that Blaine had a history of being abusive. By the time police visited the couple's home several hours away, they had indeed gone on the run, leaving behind their vehicles, pets, and most of their personal belongings. A search of their cell phones led detectives to Blaine's nephew, Brent Mallard, who admitted to lighting Bly's house on fire. Meanwhile, authorities launched a national manhunt for the Barksdales. They were captured about a month later in a hotel parking lot in Westchester, New York, where they were staying in an RV. While being extradited to Arizona on first-degree murder charges, the couple overpowered and kidnapped the guards who were tasked with watching over them during the drive. They locked the guards in the van and fled in a stolen car to southern Utah. U.S. Marshals captured the pair 2 weeks later in rural Arizona. Susan Barksdale was found to be the less culpable party and took a deal. She pleaded guilty to manslaughter and received a 5-year prison sentence. Blaine Barksdale admitted to second-degree murder and was sentenced to 14 years in prison. He'll be released in 2041 at the age of 77. Number 3. Vincenzo Laporta. Italian mob boss Vincenzo Laporta is a member of the Camorra organization, one of the country's oldest Mafia-style crime groups. He went on the run in 2012 and was convicted in absentia of financial crimes. During his 11 years as a fugitive, Laporta was considered one of Italy's most dangerous wanted criminals. He was finally captured in 2023 after police spotted him celebrating an Italian soccer victory in a photo that was taken on the Greek island of Corfu. Prosecutors issued a warrant for Laporta's arrest, and officers took him into custody after he tried to flee from law enforcement on his scooter. According to authorities, he had built a whole new life in Greece, where he worked as a chef and had started a family. He kept a low profile, but was unable to contain his excitement over his hometown soccer team's first major victory in 33 years. And it was ultimately what did him in. Laporta's lawyer told the press that his client does not want to be extradited to Italy and that he plans to fight to remain in Greece. Meanwhile, Italian officials are urging for the extradition request to be granted so Laporta can be sent back to Italy, where he faces a 14-year prison sentence. Number 2. Dion Pelzer. In February 2023, 75-year-old David McDonald was found murdered in his apartment in Boston. An intruder had entered through the front door, which the senior citizen left unlocked so he could receive visitors and food deliveries without having to get up. The suspect slashed McDonald's throat, ate his food, and slept on the living room sofa before leaving with the victim's wallet, credit cards, and keys. Surveillance footage showed the killer arriving at the apartment building around 9:30 p.m. He could be seen turning the doorknobs of various apartments until he found one that was unlocked and leaving about 12 hours later. Based on the evidence, investigators identified the suspect as 30-year-old Dion Pelzer, who was wanted for allegedly assaulting someone with a knife in Brooklyn, New York. Police arrested him at a hospital in Boston while responding to a report that he was causing a disturbance. In addition to the charges out of New York, Pelzer faces a murder charge in Massachusetts. He's being held without bail while he awaits the next steps in his case. Number 1. Syed Sam Husseini. 36-year-old Dejan Dimitrovsky was tortured and murdered at his home in Perth, Australia in 2017. Investigators believe he was killed over a drug debt and identified his friend Syed Sam Husseini as one of 5 suspects in the case. But before authorities could take Husseini into custody on a murder charge, he fled to Afghanistan using his brother's passport. Fast forward 4 years to 2021. US forces were leaving Afghanistan after a 20-year presence in the country, and the government was falling to the Taliban. People were fleeing in droves, and Husseini, who holds dual citizenship in Australia and Afghanistan, was among many who flocked to the Kabul airport, desperately hoping to catch a flight out. Suddenly returning to Australia to face a murder charge didn't seem like the worst thing in the world, and he was probably regretting his decision to flee to Afghanistan in the first place. Luckily, he managed to obtain clearance with the help of his lawyer and was permitted to board an evacuation flight back to Australia. His return came just months after his 4 accomplices went on trial for murder. 2 suspects were convicted of manslaughter and received 9 and 10-year prison sentences, while another defendant was sentenced to 4 years for being an accessory after the fact. The 4th suspect was acquitted. Husseini was accused of being the main instigator in the case and faced a potential lifetime behind bars if convicted. The current status of the case is unclear. Attorney Glenn Kolometz, who was not involved in Husseini's case but was helping people flee Afghanistan, told 9 News that life in an Australian prison was preferable to facing the Taliban's version of justice. At the time, the Taliban was allegedly burning the passports of dual nationals who were trying to leave the country. Husseini was indeed lucky to get out of there, even at the risk of losing his freedom to a murder conviction. Thanks for watching. If you had to choose, would you rather serve a 15-year prison sentence in a foreign country or avoid prison time in the country you grew up in and/or where most of your friends and family live by agreeing to leave and never return? Let us know in the comments below, and remember to subscribe. See you next time. Bye.